Hey everybody, Derek here, and I'm here to bring you another video for our Walking Dead countdown to the Season 5 premiere. If you are watching this video, that means that we are exactly 40 days away from our upcoming 5th season premiere. Getting closer, folks, and we are definitely, hey, we're getting into the 30s starting tomorrow, and I'm really excited. I mean, we are really getting down to the wire here for our premiere, which is really nice. We definitely miss Walking Dead. We always look forward to it coming back, and I'm really excited. Again, I said that when we got down to the 51-day mark, I was going to do episode reviews for all of the episodes. And because of the fact that today we were at 40 days, my review today is going to be for Secrets, which was the 6th episode of the 2nd season. This episode did make my top 10 worst episodes list, mostly because some of the things that happened in this episode, I felt it was just, really stretched out. They didn't really need to take all that time to do those things. I really wish that they would have used this episode more for, revealing the walkers in the barn. I think that, it definitely set up some very good things. And I really, again, it's not the worst episode in the world. I mean, again, remember, these episodes, when you watch them as a whole, are very good. Season 2 is a good season. I felt it had a great story. Overall, it was very fantastic. But again, like, when you have to wait 7 days for an episode like Secrets, it's definitely a letdown. And you really wanted to see a lot of those things, be solved sooner. And I felt like, again, like dealing with Lori's pregnancy took, going with Glenn, then to Dale, then to I just felt like they could have used that time more wisely. They definitely could have, done a lot more things with it. But, it is what it is. And again, it's not the worst episode in the world. And again, definitely had a lot of things happen in it. So there are a lot of positives about it. But again, just in case you're not caught up, this video will contain spoilers. So if you are not caught up with The Walking Dead, you're just getting started, you're in for a great treat. It's a great show, but there will be spoilers in this video, so do not watch if you're not caught up. Okay. Now, the very first scene in this episode is definitely a very big one, and I really like it. Carl is now healed. He's up on his feet. And of course, Hershel did say that once Carl was healed, that the group would have to move on. And once they found Sophia. So we've already seen that, the group is closer to having to leave, that Hershel's going to make them leave. And, Carl is out there feeding the chickens, and he notices that the mother chicken is not there. And, Lori's like trying to play it off like, nah, it's probably just off, doing something. And Carl's like, no, it's probably eating. He notes that everything is food for everything else now, which was very big. I mean, seeing Carl recognize that shows just how much he's growing up, and that he's not shielded from this. And it's very important to make sure that Carl understands what's going on. I mean, as much as you want him to grow up as a child in the Walking Dead world, he kind of needs to be more of an adult. And the fact that he's recognizing this, because I mean, let's face it, nowadays, even the biggest predators in the United States don't often eat humans. I mean, yeah, some humans do get killed by, mountain lions and bears and whatnot each year. I mean, that's just life. I mean, those things do happen, but it's not a frequent occurrence. I mean, it's not like we have to watch over our backs every day to wonder if a mountain lion is going to come out of the woods, come out down into the city and eat us. It's not going to happen. But now you have to worry about, hey, I am now no longer at the top of the food chain, and the walkers are, and they will eat us. It's just the fact of life now. And what ended up happening was the chicken probably was eaten by the walkers in the barn, because Patricia ends up breaking the legs of another chicken and takes it into the barn and gives it to the walkers. And we've seen that walkers will eat, not only humans, but they will eat horses, they will eat pigs, they will eat chicken. We've seen this happen before on the show. And it's definitely something that will happen. So we see that that's probably what ended up happening. A lot of other things happen in this episode too. Glenn is definitely put in a hard spot because he now knows that there's walkers in the barn, and Maggie's asking him not to tell his group because then it's going to be, it's going to be a big problem for their, for the Green family. And Lori's asking Glenn not to tell Rick or anybody that she's pregnant because she doesn't want anybody to know. And it's so hard for Glenn. I mean, Glenn even admits that he doesn't like lying, and I can understand why. I mean, as much as you want to carry on a private life in The Walking Dead, nonetheless, you also need to think about what is best for everybody. Walker's in the barn, I mean, as much as you can understand where Herschel's coming from, not a very ideal situation. Not you don't want to have something trapped in your backyard that might kill you. So I can understand where, both sides are coming from. It's definitely really hard for Glenn to be put in a position like that. But what he ends up doing is he realizes he can't keep it to himself, and he doesn't want to, be the one to blab, but he needs to figure out what the right thing to do. And again, Dale is that person who, if you're struggling with some moral decision, you go to him because Dale's going to find the best way of dealing with it. And Dale recognizes, again, like he agrees with Glenn, these things can't just be kept a secret. It's best if they know that Lori's pregnant, so they know what to do. And it's also better that, that Herschel is informed, hey, these walkers are not living things. They can kill you and they will eat you, which Herschel doesn't really grasp because, again, he's very cut off. And, Dale does end up going to tell Herschel, he's like, oh, I was walking down by the barn and I heard about the walkers in there. What's going on? And Herschel just says, hey, they're my family members. He says, they're people. They're sick, and I need to keep them there for when there is a cure that we can save our family. And Dale's like, no, you didn't see what I saw. Dale's been out there, and he knows that these creatures are dangerous. And Herschel tries to combat him with everything, and he's like, hey, schizophrenia is dangerous, but you don't see us killing them, and you don't see this. And Dale's like, this is a big difference. Herschel doesn't see it as any other different, thing. And he says, hey, when you kill them, it's murder. And he talks about, hey, I know you killed one out by my well. And Herschel looks at that as a murder. He still thinks of them as living creatures that are just sick. And again, he hasn't really had to come by a lot of them. Yeah, he's had to see some of them, but he's not really, grasping the point of, what exactly these creatures are. But while this is going on, the group goes target practicing in order to, be able to better defend themselves. And Carl wants to go along, and he actually took a gun, to protect himself. And definitely upsets Lori because, again, Lori wants to keep Carl safe, and she doesn't want him having to, have these adult responsibilities and putting his life at risk. But Carl says, Mom, in this world, I need to be able to help my group out. I need to be able to protect everybody, and I want to do that. And Rick notes, he's like, hey, Carl was just shot and had a very traumatic experience, but the kid's not afraid of a gun, which, you really can't be in the Walking Dead world. You need to be able to learn how to handle all kinds of weapons to protect yourself. And, Lori ends up giving in, even though she doesn't want to, and lets Carl go out. So again, another big moment of Carl growing up and realizing just how the world has changed for all groups of people. So I definitely think it was a very big moment for the series. You also have Andrea going out and doing like an advanced shooting class with Shane before they go out and look at the housing development where they think Sophia might be at. Andrea is definitely a great shot. That's something that the comic book character had a very good quality about, and Andrea in the TV series has that as well. And you see that Shane and Andrea have another moment. Now, you've seen that they kind of have a connection, but, Shane ends up bringing Amy into the mix again, and, he's pushing the log back and forth and just, showing off his skills and saying, this is what you need to do. Like, you need to be able to let go of all that and focus. And, he's like, pretend that that's a walker. It's coming at you. It's the walker that got Amy. Kill it. And Andrea gets very upset by this. And you see like this intensity in Shane that, has the ability to, upset other people. He's very abrasive. He's very upfront. And he's very, controlling, like he wants his way. And you just see how all of that comes out at various times, which again makes people realize, just that he is a bad guy in some ways, but he still is definitely looking out for the group. So you do recognize that. I mean, that's the thing, is you're always supposed to feel conflicted about Shane. and me, I feel conflicted right up until the very end, but I'll get to that later on. Dale also tells Lori that, he knows that she's pregnant. Lori realizes that Glenn said something. Now, Lori assures that it's Rick's, but again, Lori shares her concerns with Dale, and Dale also recognizes that it might be Shane's, and he's trying to diffuse the situation because he doesn't want to see Lori make a decision that she might regret later. I mean, he says, you can raise a child in this world; it can still have a happy life. And he goes, hey, not really. Nobody really knew that you and Shane were for sure together. We didn't really know. We kind of knew, but we didn't. I think he's just trying to, I mean, I think maybe they did, but I think that what Dale's trying to do is he's trying to tell Lori, make a choice, but make sure you tell Rick about this. You need to put a lot of thought into this because it's definitely a big deal, her being pregnant. Now, Lori, again, is feeling very unsure, and I can understand that. When you're living in a world like this, and especially if, Lori even says, I don't want to give birth in a ditch on the run. The farm is definitely a very secure place at this point. If she was there, she would definitely feel more comfortable about having the baby, but she realizing that, Herschel's been saying all along, hey, you guys are moving on, you guys aren't staying here. Lori's thinking we're never going to find a safe place like this again, and I don't know if we can have this baby and keep everybody safe. And she's definitely concerned about that. She says, later on, she's like, well, what if this baby cries and we're out there and herd of walkers comes through and kills people? She doesn't want to see that happen. So she asks Glenn to go get morning after pills so that she can end the pregnancy. And Glenn ends up going down there with Maggie, and we see him and Maggie, Maggie's upset with him for telling, the group about the walkers in the barn. But again, Maggie's the same way as Herschel, she wasn't really exposed to everything that was going on out there, and basically, tells him, what, I don't like that you're calling them walkers. Why are you calling them walkers? My mom's in there, my brother's in there, the neighbors are in there, some of my friends are in there. And it's understandable to still see walkers in this way. I mean, for me, I know it would be a lot harder to put a walker down if that was my own father, my own mother, from my past life. I know that that would be very hard to do. I can understand where Maggie's coming from. But you see, like, the various different sides of it. Plus, I think that Maggie also gets a revelation because, when they go into the pharmacy, there's actually a walker in there this time. There wasn't before. And it almost gets her, and Glenn ends up saving her. And I think that Maggie starts to realize a little more that Glenn's right, that these things are not safe, to be around. They're very dangerous. They could kill you. And, he doesn't want to see that happen to Maggie. And, Maggie also maybe starts to realize, wow, maybe Glenn has a point. But she's definitely very upset, that they were out there. She realizes why they're out there. She sees that Glenn is getting the morning after pills. She goes back there and pretty much like tears a new one into Lori. I mean, about sending them out there, risking their lives. She goes, here's your morning after pills. She says, yeah, next time you want to risk your life and you want to do this, go out there yourself. And, Glenn goes after Maggie, wants to make sure that she's okay. He cares about Maggie. You see this connection, and you also see that Maggie does care about Glenn. And I think that what we see before is, Maggie's trying not to form feelings because she realizes just how precarious this world is and just how quick it is that you can lose some of your friends. But on the other hand, you also see that Maggie wants to have these connections with people, while they're here. She doesn't want to see Glenn die, and she kisses him and tells him, like, listen to me. You are a leader. You're a great guy, but the other members of the group don't want you to know this about yourself, and they don't want you to have these leadership abilities. She basically says, hey, why do they send you out there? They send you out there because you're willing to do it. They send you down a well to suppress your ability to think like a leader. They want Glenn to be more of a, a follower, send him out there. She says, I don't want to see that happen to you. I want you to be alive and I want you here because I've already lost enough people. So you definitely see, again, that relationship is pretty much very strong, and you see the feelings starting to form between them become even stronger, which is very nice to see. the Shane and Andrea end up searching the housing development, and this is where Andrea actually starts to be able to channel those feelings to help her be able to shoot. She really, starts to become a very good shot, not just at targets, but she kills several walkers. So you definitely see that improvement. And then on the way back, maybe just the thrill, that they had back at the housing development, the near brush with death. A lot of things come together, and Shane and Andrea pull over to the side of the road and make love. Just hey, it's just something to do, and that it's nice to have those feelings. Whenever you're near death every day. I mean, doesn't really, not really a bad thing to want to be with somebody, and have those last great things about life. There's very few things that you can enjoy about life anymore in a zombie apocalypse. And you make love, and that's something that makes you happy. It's definitely gonna be like one of the very few things left that you have. But another thing that ends up happening is Lori basically debates whether she's going to take the morning after pills or not, and she does end up taking them. She throws them up almost immediately afterwards. I think she realizes, again, she doesn't want to kill the child that's in her. And I think that, again, she takes everything into consideration. She realizes that this child may actually be good for the group, and that maybe there is hope that they can stay on Hershel's farm, and maybe this is something that can help Hershel realize that this is why they can't go. So I think she feels a lot of those things come together. Now, another big thing that happens near the end is Shane and Andrea comes back, and Dale notices how Andrea is, and I think he realizes what happened between him and Andrea, Shane and Andrea. I think that, again, Dale is very wise. He's not stupid at all, and he's able to realize things from the situation that not a lot of people can. I mean, some people just don't pay attention the way that Dale does, and he's very perceptive. And Dale realizes that Shane has always been bad for the group. His behavior, the way that he's treated people, the way that he goes about doing things is not good for the group. He's too much of a risk, to the group. And Dale even says, hey, you got that car, you can go. You've been saying you wanted to go, and Shane's like, well, I really don't want to go, Dale. Like what's the point when I got to think a lot of things going? And Dale just flat out tells him, Shane, you are no good for this group. You are a threat. You are a risk. And he tells him, he pretty much calls him out on everything. He's like, Shane, I know that something happened between you and Otis, because you've been very vague about that night. And he says, hey, and I did not forget that time back in Wildfire when you had your gun pointed at Rick. Rick was out there, you had the moment, and you were going to take the shot. And I didn't forget that. He says, I know what kind of man you are. You are the kind of man that would do whatever it takes to survive, and you will tear this group apart. He sees that. And Shane just comes right back, and I mean, it sends chills up your spine thinking about what Shane said. Shane pretty much tells him, he says, well, Rick is my best friend and my brother, okay? And you're saying that I would kill him. Like, are you crazy? And he goes, but also think about this, Dale. If I would shoot a man like Rick, that I love like a brother, what would make you think that I wouldn't shoot a guy that I don't even like? And the moment that he starts spreading rumors, and that's the thing, he basically tells Dale, like, hey, keep your darn mouth shut. Don't be spreading these things around, or I might lead you out into the woods. Because that's what Shane would do. Shane is going to do whatever it takes to preserve himself. And if he feels that Dale's going to get into the way of that, he's going to take Dale out, just like he did with Otis. Otis was a liability at that point. Shane made the hard call. So you see that Shane definitely has the abilities to do this, and we've seen this time and time again. But the very last thing that happens, again, you realize just how much does actually happen in this episode. It's not like it was completely boring and nothing happened. Rick walks into their tent, finds the morning after pills, and basically confronts Lori, like, what the heck? And Lori tells him, what happened. And Rick's obviously furious that Lori didn't come to him, which is completely understandable. I mean, Rick feels he's the father, and, Lori tells him, no, you're the father, all of this. And Lori just says, look, with all the other things going on, all the other decisions that you had to make, I didn't want to put this burden on you. And in one way, Rick can understand this, and in another way, he's upset. And then it comes out, that Lori and Shane were together. But, and I think that Rick feels a lot of different things, because Rick even says, after he realizes, he's like, I already knew it. I could tell just by the way that you were interacting with each other, the way that Shane's been interacting with me, all of this, the way you two have been. I can tell. He says, I knew all along. He goes, but I can understand that. You thought I was dead, and you thought that it was best to, have someone there for you and Carl. And Rick is able to understand that. I mean, he doesn't get upset totally with Lori. He can understand in some ways, but it's definitely interesting to see how that's gonna, unfold. And later on, you do see Rick confront Shane with this and see how it all works out in the end. But again, this it wasn't a bad episode overall. I mean, it does definitely lend a lot to the plot and definitely left a lot of things to wonder about in future episodes. So I'm going to bring the video to a close, and again, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I have a lot more video ideas coming up. Definitely have a lot of great ideas, so if there's anything that you want to see, please let me know. I will do several different kinds of videos, and please subscribe so you'll know when those videos are coming up. Thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.